that big decision to leave my academic job and leave Auckland, if I hadn't done that, I would probably still be there now and I wouldn't be doing what I am doing now.
Hi, I'm Jo Clark, and thanks so much for joining me today. This is the Redefining Midlife podcast, a podcast designed for the 40-plus woman who is determined to challenge society's myths and beliefs around midlife. It's for the woman who is inspired and ready to define midlife her way. Join me each week as I chat to health and wellness experts for up-to-date information on how to live well as some special conversations with incredible everyday women redefining what midlife can look like. Here's to making our next half of life even better than the first. Hello and welcome to episode 93 of Redefining Midlife. And today we're shining the light on another amazing midlife woman. Her name's Kylie Cronwright. Now, Kylie comes to us from Gisborne in New Zealand. She's a wife, mother of 2 teenage daughters, and a passionate gardener. But of course, like all midlife women, there's so much more to her story. Now, Kylie's journey is a fantastic reminder that the skills we pick up throughout our careers can be reinvented and used in so many different ways. She's proof that you can totally reshape your life and your career. And once an academic and a research and development manager in the food industry, Kylie spent 15 years immersed in the world of food science. But working in a toxic environment had taken its toll on her health, and she knew she had to make some big changes for her own well-being now and in the future. I'm super excited for you to hear Kylie's story about how she left behind and built an amazing business. She is intentionally creating the second half of her life, and her insights are going to inspire you to do the same. So let's dive in. Welcome to the Redefining Midlife podcast, Kylie. It is lovely to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Jo. It's so nice to be here.
Now, you're a great example of a woman who isn't afraid to change direction in life. And as our lovely listeners will hear during our conversation today, your most recent change is something that you probably wouldn't have dreamed of at the start of your career. And what I'm loving about during our pre-chat is that you really actively look at ways to improve your life, your health, and that of your families as well. And I really love the way that your whole life is evolving in a way that you decide and create. Because on this podcast and the work that I do with women, we talk about creating and living a life by design and not by default. So I'm looking forward for you to share your experience with us today, because we always, it's great for us to see what other women are doing and what they've done with their skill set. And before we do that though, Kylie, I really want to learn a little bit more about Kylie the woman before we go on about Kylie and all of the amazing things that she's done in her career today. So you live in New Zealand. Tell us a little bit about your growing up time and how your childhood was. So where in New Zealand did you grow up and what was your childhood like?
So I grew up in Gisborne, New Zealand, and Gisborne is in the North Island. It's actually quite a remote sort of small city. And so I grew up here. I live here now. I went away for a bit, but yeah, I'm back here in my hometown. We lived out on an orchard, a kiwi fruit orchard. So I was a kind of rural sort of girl. Yeah.
Nice. And did you have a clear idea of what you wanted to do when you left school?
So I was an academic girl, right? So I highly intelligent, and I actually left school a year early. So I was young, making a decision about what I was going to do. And no, I definitely didn't go through my life thinking I was going to do something in particular, but I was really good at maths and really good at sciences. Maths is like a whole language for me. I just love it. And so I was good at that sort of thing. And I had a chemistry teacher who basically just put a glossy brochure in front of me and said, Kylie, this would be quite interesting for you. And I looked at it and I was like, well, yes, it's maths and science. It was an engineering degree. Yeah. And so I just trotted up and did that.
With the eyes of experience now, Kylie, is there something that you got, oh, damn, I wish I would have studied that or gone down that path? Or are you happy with what you chose when you were younger?
In many ways, I'm quite pleased that I did study sciences. I have a real curious mind. I love detail. I love understanding how things work. I'm not superficial at all. So even in conversations with people, I just don't do superficial conversations. I love really getting into the layers underneath. And so I'm like that with everything. So I love understanding how things work, whether it be food, which is what I'm into, or, anything really. So it was a good choice for me because it satisfied that part of me that enjoys understanding how things work, is very analytical and structured. So yeah, good in that sense. And I remember at one stage thinking, oh, maybe I could study medicine. And I'm pleased I never did that. I am pleased I didn't go down that path. So yeah.
You don't know what you don't know. And when you're younger, especially if you hadn't got a clear direction path, then if something's put in front of you, go, it's probably a good idea. Yeah, I'll try that.
I was 17 when I made that decision. I was 17 when I went to university. So I was quite young.
Yeah, me too. I'd only just turned 17 when my first year of university. Yeah. Quite amazing. And did you go away? That was a question I was going to ask just before. Did you go away to university? Because obviously Gisborne I'm assuming, isn't super close to Auckland, or am I wrong? Because I'm going to be pleading ignorance to the North Island geography at the moment.
Yeah, so Gisborne has a small polytech, and I didn't go there. I went to Massey University, which has, the campus I went to was in Palmerston North, so it was about a 5-hour drive from where we lived. So I was there for 4 years doing a bachelor degree. So I did a degree in engineering. It was engineering for the food industry and similar kinds of industries. And then I did a PhD at the same place as well. So I was at university for 7 years. And, as someone who loves knowledge and understanding how things work, I quite enjoyed that. It was quite good.
Yeah, you would have been in your happy place because it was ticking all the buckets for you.
Yeah, it felt quite familiar at that point too, having, when you've been studying for a while and you just keep learning about something in more and more depth, it feels very familiar and you know everyone. It was all very familiar and quite enjoyable. It was a fun time.
Yeah. And so tell me, when you went, during our pre-chat, you were talking about going over to France as well. Where did that fit into those 7 years, or was that post PhD?
So that was after that. So towards the end of my PhD, one of my supervisors, he'd been collaborating with a lady over in France, and she was looking for a postdoc. So that's someone who's got a PhD who's looking to do some research after their PhD. Mm-hmm. And he said, oh, Kylie, you should do this. Doesn't this sound familiar? And I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. And so I just finished off my PhD, and then I went over to France and started this postdoc. I remember getting off the plane in Paris and, traveling into Paris, and I had to wait to get a train down to Clermont-Ferrand, which was where I was going to be studying or working. And I remember sitting there thinking, oh, this is actually quite big. And this is a little bit scary at this point. And I only thought about it.
That was when you worked that out. I love it.
I just landed there and I was like, oh, this is quite big. And I don't speak any French.
Oh, that was what I was going to ask next. So you must be fairly good and confident with your French.
No, not at all. Not at all. Bonjour.
It sounds like mine when I was over there last year. So how did you go with doing such high-level work without a word of French or very limited French?
So thankfully within universities, English is quite common because they're working with publications that are in English. They have to write most publications in English. So that's fine. And you find that within universities, there's a lot of international people. And when it comes to particularly the research side, and English tends to be the common language that people will communicate in. So that was fine for me. I did pick up a little bit of French over that time. It was enough to understand people talking to me and what they were asking, and enough to be able to ask for simple things like 2 train tickets or that kind of thing, or I need a pair of shoes in this size. So I could do that kind of thing, but not really hold a conversation in French. But yeah, it was fun. I can't believe I did it actually.
I love it when you're younger, though. You don't question. I think as you get older and older, you start, and then you get to the other point where you start giving. So you go through that stage of probably in your late teens, 20s, where you just, everything's an adventure. You're going to give it a go. And then life happens and you get more serious and you don't like to take risks and you're really risk adverse. And then you unlearn it again as you start getting a little bit older. I just find it fascinating.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I look back on that and I just remember arriving in Paris and it was so foreign. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. From Gisborne, who was then in Palmerston North, which is quite a rural agricultural town too, and then arriving in Paris, and I remember thinking, well, I'd quite like to get back on the plane and go home, but no, I've said I'm here to do this thing, so I better get on the train and go to the next bit.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Good on you. And so what did you do in those 12 months? What was the research that you were doing?
So the research was very unique actually. I was looking at understanding how people chew food. And I can't remember if we talked about this in our pre-talk or not, but that was what it was about. So I was looking at how people responded, how people's mouths responded to different types of food. So how did we respond to different hardness levels in food in terms of what our muscles were doing and how our jaw was moving, and also how did we respond to other properties of food. So it was really understanding that food, mouth, mechanical kind of relationship.
Well
very
done.
specific.
Very specific, yes. And so with that set of skills, new skills that you've got and this new learnings that you do, after 12 months, then what? What do you do with all of this new knowledge, and how did you, decide to come home, and that sort of pathway you took then?
Yeah, so that was a 12-month contract. And while I was doing that, 2 academic roles came up in New Zealand, in Auckland. And one of them was at Massey University, which was a university I'm very familiar with. That's where I had studied. And the other one was at the University of Auckland. So I ended up applying for those roles and I was interviewed and offered the job at Massey University before I actually heard from the other place. And so I accepted that role and came back to New Zealand and started working for Massey University as a lecturer. So I think I was about 26 or 27 at that time. So I was quite young going into an academic role. But it was fun. It was good.
So how many years did you stay in that role as an academic then, Kylie?
Almost 13 years. Almost 13. So I started, started at about 26 or 27, I can't remember now. And I taught food technology students various aspects of process engineering, taught a little bit of food science, and I actually grew that whole research area on the mouth, on oral processing, and that was what I mostly focused on in terms of research while I was in that role. So yeah, about 14 years of research on the mouth.
Right. And so did you love it until you didn't, or what was the like? Why did you decide?
Basically, you know how you have children and it's quite a juggle working and having children, and so there was that juggle, and then the kids starting school, and I just started to feel like I actually loved that job. I worked with really great people. I loved the rich conversations that we had. It's a really unique kind of workplace, and because people are intensely interested in their areas of research, they tend to be just intensely interested in various aspects of life. And so you have really great conversations. So it was a really good workplace. I don't have any negative feelings about that role at all. It was a great workplace, but I just started to feel like it was defining who I was, that if I stayed there, my life was defined by the four walls of that institution. And it's really common for academics to go into those roles and stay there their entire life, like their entire life. And they might stay at the same institution, same university. They might go to another, but they're in that university academic role for their whole working career. And I just felt like maybe that's not what I wanted. But also at the time, Mike and I we just felt like we were working to pay a mortgage, and we had this juggle of jobs and kids and paying a mortgage. And we just were at this point, we felt like maybe we don't need to live here because Auckland was an expensive place to live.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew that we had built up enough equity that if we left Auckland, we could move and buy something else, buy another home, and actually be debt free. So that was a big incentive for us to leave Auckland, which meant leaving that job as well. But there were multiple things, and I think, I really felt like it was time to leave. Yeah, it was time to leave that kind of role and look at what's next.
Well, for a young woman who left for France, you can imagine just being 13 years is probably at your upper limit of what you could have put up with.
Yeah, it was just, I don't know, I just kind of got to a point. I was like, I think I'm done with this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was really good at that job. Like, I got promotions all the time. My career was going great at the university. But I just felt like there was something else. There's something else. Yeah. And we wanted different in our life. We wanted to be away from debt, actually, from mortgages and feeling like we were just working to pay a mortgage. We wanted a bit more space and freedom in our life.
Yeah. And so Mike, your husband, was he also an academic, or did he have a different profession?
No, so I met Mike when I was at university, and he was actually in the army. So Palmerston North has the university and it has an army base as well. So I met Mike through friends, and he ended up coming over to France with me partway through. So he hung out with me in France for about 6 months, which was neat. We travelled around a bit together, and when he came back, he worked in hydraulic engineering. And so he's done a few different things over the years. He did hydraulic engineering for a while, and then he actually worked for St. John Ambulance for a bit. And then when we came to Gisborne, he went more back into that kind of engineering side again. And so we've done a few different things. So now he's self-employed. We're both self-employed now.
Gotcha. And so tell me what you did when you got back. You landed back into your old hometown, bought a house, and then what? What work-wise for you?
So I was running a little business. So when I was in Auckland, I actually started this party supplies business. And this came from having young children and putting together beautiful birthdays for them and hiring tables and chairs and things for kids' birthdays. And at the time I thought, there's an opportunity to hire out some of these things, because I had collected all these nice things for the kids' birthdays. And then it just grew because, an idea starts small and then it grows pretty quickly. And so I had an online party shop for a bit. And when we moved to Gisborne, we moved all of that with us. And I ran it from Gisborne, and that was just my focus. And actually having a bit of downtime as well, because I felt like I had worked my entire life. Like you'd gone through school, I'd gone to uni, did the PhD, did the postdoc, came back into a job, had children, still went back to work. I just felt like I had worked my entire life and I needed a rest. So when we came back here, Mike got a job elsewhere, and I focused on just the party supplies business and the kids. And then about a year into it, I got offered a job for a large commercial grower locally as a research and development manager. And I was there for 2 years, working part-time. So I was working school hours, and really interesting job. Like, I learned a lot. There's a lot of science and vegetables and post-harvest, after you've harvested vegetables and all that kind of stuff. A lot of science and interesting stuff there, but I really did not enjoy working for other people. And it was a very different workplace to the previous one I'd had. And in my whole body, actually, for 2 years, I knew I was not meant to be there. And so finally, after 2 years, I left.
It's amazing, isn't it, how you can feel on that cellular level that you shouldn't be there, but because of circumstances, you just have to grit your teeth and get through it.
Well, I actually didn't have to be there anyway.
So why did you last 2 years, Kylie?
I know, because I had in my mind, I was thinking, it never looks good when you're not in a job for very long. I was thinking about my CV. And so I just stayed. It's crazy. But the thing is now, I'm unlikely to ever work for anyone else again for the rest of my life. And it just doesn't matter. But at the time, it felt important. But stepping outside of it, wasn't important at all. I actually learned a lot about myself during that time.
Well, you would have. You would have learned a heck of a lot. So you were in your early 40s at this stage, Kylie, or late 30s? When was the time period?
I would have been, late 30s, early 40s. I turned 40 in that job. I remember turning 40 in that job. Right. Yeah.
So tell me what you learned about yourself.
Oh, I think I learned about myself leaving it. So I was really kind of people-pleasing a bit in that job, and I think I learned some toughness from it. It's hard to kind of explain, but I definitely learned some toughness. It wasn't the nicest workplace. And I learned a bit of toughness. I've learned a bit more toughness since. And I also learned that I'm actually really smart. I don't think I realized how smart I was, because when you're in a university and you work with other smart people in a university, like, everyone's smart. But when I went into that workplace, I remember thinking, okay, I'm actually really smart. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I can understand that. And
it was a nice revelation.
Yeah. It is, isn't it? And for some people, it can sound, I'm really smart. Yeah, that is true. But the gifted population is such a small percentage of the population. So you are amongst a very small amount. And I did a lot of work when, having both of my children identified as gifted as well. And no doubt, I exhibit many of the traits.
They got it from you, Jay.
It must have been all of my genetics, not a poor husband. It's a lot of his too. But just, operating on a different level. And so when you are operating on a different level and you're working amongst, it's not trying to be elitist, it's just that you are thinking differently.
Yeah, definitely.
And definitely. I suppose when you are then, you are in a situation when you're at the university where you're amongst more of your own. Getting you out of that situation, you probably you weren't used to it. Your entire working life, you were not used to that.
No, and also just things like people following through on work they're meant to do. I'm just trying to remember that, actually. I just remember feeling like my core values were the workplace was so against my core values and how you treat other people, the way, all that stuff, all the softer things, like how people interact and how you support each other in your roles and all that kind of thing. And that was misaligned for me.
And when you left that workplace then, did you focus fully on your party hire business? What was, because that's another different layer of things as well, isn't it?
Yeah. So while I was in that role, I also had that party supplies business still running in the background. But when your time is very split, it's hard to keep an online business going. So it had dwindled a little bit. And I was no longer passionate about it. I wasn't really even interested in doing it. So I decided to start something new. And with that business, I had been selling some glass jars because people used them for weddings and things like that. So I had I'd had been selling glass jars for quite a long time, and I knew they were really consistent sellers. Yeah, they were really good sellers. So I decided, right, well, we're in this place right now. People are really interested in zero waste. There's a lot more people going back to basics and be more reconnected with their food. And so I thought, right, I'm going to actually start something that is focused on more traditional kitchen things, preserving food, more low tox kind of living, and zero waste. So that was the package that I had in mind. And from that, I created the business Kiwi Family Kitchen, which is where I sell all those sorts of things. And it was with that my next business came about, because with that I spoke to so many customers, supporting them with selecting preserving jars or issues they were having with their preserving. And so from that, I had all these customers say to me, Kylie, you should teach. No, they said, you should teach people this. You're really good at this. You should teach people. And I didn't think much of it. And then over time, I just had this, it was just sort of mulling away in the background. And then eventually I decided, yeah, I'm actually going to do it. It was in 2020, I think I decided I was going to do it. I shared that with my audience on Instagram, and so many of them came back and were like, oh, I cannot wait. I cannot wait. I've been waiting for something like this. So yeah, that's how it came about. It was very organic how my current business came about. So yeah.
Was this pre-pandemic or was this during pandemic?
Yeah, the product-based business, Kiwi Family Kitchen, I launched that middle of 2019. So actually the pandemic was great for my business. It was a big driver of growth for that business. And the membership, Patch to Pantry, that I launched March 2023. Yeah, so it took a few years. Yeah, there was a bit of a gap. Yeah.
Yep.
And I think it must have been early 2023. I decided, yes, I am going to do this. Yeah, March, late 2022. Yeah, late 2022. I decided I was going to do it. Yeah.
So tell me about the membership. What does that involve?
So with the membership, I teach people how to preserve food. That's the primary thing. But I also support people in using their food. It's kind of a bit bigger than that. Some of my members come in actually quite lacking confidence in even cooking. So there's support for just general cooking as well. But ultimately, I'm there teaching people how to preserve food using lots of different methods and helping them stay inspired and motivated to continue doing it. Because it's like anything in life, it takes time to do. And it's one of those things that you can easily procrastinate over to the point of not doing it, even when you've got vegetables that need to be preserved. So it sits there as a place of inspiration and motivation for our members. We have an online community side, so they get to hang out together and take part in fun challenges and things like that. That's essentially what we do.
Yep. Yeah. And do you have the other arm of your business still going as well, Kylie? I do. Okay, so both of those working together.
Yeah, both of those are here together right now. Who knows what will happen in the future, but they're so complementary to each other at the moment. And yeah, there's been times when I felt like, oh, I could probably move on this product-based business now because I felt really stretched, but I have support with my daughter. One of my teenage daughters, she helps me with packing orders and things like that. So that's so much easier now. And it's working for us as it is right now. It's really great work experience for my girls. They're both teenagers, 14 and 16. It gives them some work experience, which is really comfortable and easy for them. They're not having to go off to a workplace. They're just working for me. And yeah, there's a lot you learn. There's actually a lot you learn when you pack orders. It's a lot you learn about business packing orders. Things like, gosh, it can take me as long to pack this order of very little value compared to this order of much higher value. So start to see things like that and then considering, how long does it take you handling this product, and is it really worth selling it? So there's a lot to be learned.
So like you said, you're not sure which direction it's going to go, but you've obviously got some sort of dreams for the future. What would they be?
So ultimately what I'd like is, in the future, I'm mostly focused on the membership and that kind of digital space. I really love food. I've always loved food. I remember as a kid, I was the one baking. I'd make the Christmas cakes, and I was quite young doing things like that. I just love food. I kind of know food, and I really I'm in this food space now, teaching preserving, but there's other areas around food that I'm quite passionate about too. I'm really actually passionate about gluten-free for people. Yeah. And so I have ideas around things with that too. But ultimately, in time, I just want to be in this more digital space, away from a product-based business. That doesn't mean that I wouldn't own it, but it would be run a bit differently to how I do now if I've still got it in time, or maybe one of the kids might take it over. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. I'd love to be traveling. So I have a dream that in the next 1 to 2 years, that as a family, we're going to be traveling, and Italy is where I'm intending to go. And I'd love to travel, and I'd love to cook with people traditionally in their own towns, and just learn from people overseas, and just enjoy that freedom of beautiful weather, beautiful food, just beautiful people. That's what I'd love to do. I definitely have this dream of traveling and preserving with the nonnas, and just, preserving.
That would be a great book, Preserving with the Nonnas. Or even just like a blog, a video blog of your this time.
Yeah. I just would love to do that, and see how they do things traditionally, but also just the rich flavors and just all that side of it. I think that would be just the most beautiful experience. It's so nice learning off other people, and that's what I love to do. Yeah.
How long would you love to do that for?
Oh, about 6 months.
Sounds divine. Do it.
Sunshine, gentle breeze, outside eating.
See, you're there. That's that whole part of the manifestation, isn't it? It's putting yourself right there, so it's going to happen. That's brilliant. And so, Kylie, we were talking beforehand, following the breadcrumbs, that everything that you've learned so far has gotten you to this point, but it's just using all of those skills in different ways. And that's why I said at the beginning, you wouldn't have imagined at the start of your career, having just left university, that you would be doing anything remotely like this.
No, not at all. Not at all. And it's interesting where I'm sitting right now, because I look back on everything and it all led me to this point. So the studying of food and understanding how food works is really important. Even that job I had not that long ago that I didn't love, it actually set me up for this too. There's a bit more mental toughness, but also as part of that, I did some training which was very specific to what I do now. And it just happened to be that business produced a product, and I had to do some training around it, which I did actually in Australia over a week. And I draw on a lot of that knowledge in what I share with my members as well. It's helped me to understand this whole preserving of vegetables and meats so they don't have a lot of acid. So you've got to be a bit more careful. So preserving of that kind of food. Yeah, it all led to this point. I also look at it and think, that big decision to leave my academic job and leave Auckland, if we hadn't done that at that point, I would probably still be there now, and I wouldn't be doing what I am doing now. So it all kind of leads to where you are at this point.
Yeah, it does.
And there'll be something else in the future too.
Where it's going to lead to in another 10 years' time, and how that might look again. Like at the moment you're 47, what could it look like when you're 57, 67, 77?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's quite amazing.
Even 50.
Yeah.
Even 50.
Yeah.
Yeah, you look at this and you think, well, all also how many other people could I help to do this as well? Because it takes a bit of courage, and it takes courage and a bit of know-how, but a bit of an open mind, and anything's really possible. So part of me feels like I would really also love to support other women to do the same. Probably because I have teenage daughters, I have a bit of a soft spot for teens. I feel like our current education system doesn't really support teens into entrepreneurship. It supports them into working for other people, basically. And I feel like there's quite a big gap there. So maybe one day I'll look at doing something in that space. Yeah, that just pops up for me every so often. That would be really nice to support teens. There's those ones who feel like a bit different, and they're really driven, and they don't want to work for other people. They want to create something for themselves. Yeah.
Well, that seed's been planted. So it'll be interesting to see what you do with that. Watch this space.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Been mulling that one over for 6 months.
Have you? Oh, well, there you go. Something's going to be brewing if that's the case.
Yeah.
So you're 47 now. How are you finding this stage of life?
Pretty interesting. I feel like in terms of, say, perimenopausal things, that probably kicked in for me about 18 months ago. And so that's been in itself interesting. Mostly for me, I feel like it has been a trigger for releasing a whole lot of things, emotions that don't serve me, they need to come out just to kind of evolve to the next stage. So I feel like last year, I feel like I was an emotional wreck. There's just a lot of stuff that had to come out. I had to feel it, it had to come out. And so I feel a lot more grounded this year. And the other thing is sleep is a pain. I find sleep is a pain. That's my painful bit. It's unpredictable. Yeah. It's easy to go from, I'm about to have a great sleep to, I've got a lot of things on my mind. Like just like that.
It's quite incredible. I had a great interview with a lady who was on episode 91 talking about the power nap, and she's done a lot of research in that. She's actually been a science background herself, and TEDx speaker, and she's been working with corporations and on the power nap and the benefits of just a 10-minute nap in the afternoon and how much it can refresh you. And working in the area with women in midlife, it's such a great tool to have in your tool bag if you can use that 10 minutes or 20 minutes on either side to incorporate a nap.
Yeah, that sounds great. I've found just even some weekends, having a really quiet weekend where I just spend quite a bit of time in bed, even if it's just watching TV in bed, which probably not the best thing, but it's quite relaxing, watching a few movies and just kind of getting that rest anyway, and kind of catching up a bit. But that's what I find. It's just a sleep thing as a pain, and it's certain times of the month it's more problematic than others. Yeah. That side is a little unpredictable, but
it is unpredictable. All right. That's all right. You know it's not going to be forever. Well, hope. Cross fingers. Get on top of it if you think it is.
I can deal with that.
You talked about the year before last, just going through and getting rid of a lot of stuff. That's actually what when I'm working with women, calling that a midlife edit. And that is actually what happens, because up until this point in time, you've been accumulating. And then you get to a point where you go, I don't need all of this baggage, emotional baggage, physical stuff, whatever. So it's that whole just getting through and learning what's going to fit for you going forward and what's not. So, well done. You started that process.
Yeah, I think it's also, you have children, and for so long you just kind of go with kids, and then balancing work and family and all these things. And then you can get to a point where that juggle is a lot less, and there's a bit of calm, which I feel like the body just goes, oh, okay, we can deal with this now, because there's a little bit of calm, and it just has to come out. It has to come out so you can just move on.
Yeah.
upgrade to the next thing.
That's right. And what
Let
do
it go.
what do you think's been your biggest life lesson that you've had so far, Kylie?
Gosh, I don't even know. I think the big thing for me at the moment is, wow, the big thing for me right now is actually we can basically create whatever we want. And actually, life is limitless. So that's, a big mindset change for me, actually. And if I can see it and I can feel it, I'm probably going to create that. Yeah, that's been a big lesson for me. Anything is possible.
It is.
Yeah.
Isn't it great that you've learned that at this point in time of your life when you know there's so much more yet to come?
Yeah, it's exciting. There's lots of things even around, we can live so much of our life. This was me, although I didn't realise it was me until I realised it was me, is being concerned about the judgment of others and how much that can hold us back. And then at some point, if you can just let it go, you just get to show up as your authentic self. And that's the most liberating way to live. People can take it or leave it. I don't actually care. Yeah.
You've got the confidence in this stage of life to actually be able to
Yeah.
live it, not just think it, but to start living it.
And that's really only come in the last 6 months.
No.
And it really was having to shed all the other stuff first.
Yeah. Well, strap yourself in.
Release
Because,
that.
yeah, you're going to keep on
What's
coming for you.
next?
Well, you never know what's
next?
going to be next. So what do you do to support your
No.
health and wellness now as a woman in the middle of life? What do you do?
So having neglected my fitness for a long time, about October last year, we decided to join a gym. And so that's one thing, making sure I get enough exercise. I had actually really noticed that the loss in muscle, that, at some point, that becomes quite noticeable. Fine for a long time, and you start to actually notice it. And notice that. So I was really focused, I've been really focused on building up muscle, just eating well. I've had gut issues in the past that I've been able to work through now, but I'm pretty careful about it. So for me, the biggest things with self-care are getting some exercise, making sure I'm eating well, allowing myself rest, and allowing myself rest. So often that is having breakfast outside in the sun and trying to get enough sleep. But that's a little bit of a battle from time to time.
Yeah.
But I figure if sleep's not always perfect, because it's not going to be right now, actually having rest during the day is super helpful, and making sure, you get enough sun, getting a bit charged by the sun and things like that. Yeah. Trying to enjoy company of awesome people more too.
Have you found just having left your last workplace, has that improved, your levels of stress as well? Has that made an impact?
Yeah, interestingly, it was an interesting experience leaving that job, because in the month or many months that followed, I actually did have that feeling of stress leaving my body. And part of that stress was just too much of a juggle. Working part-time, dropping your kids off at school, going and trying to do a good job in part-time hours, and then leaving, picking up your kids, coming home, trying to sort dinner and doing all that's a lot. Like, that is a lot. And so many women are doing that. It is a lot. So actually moving away from that job and creating some space for myself actually allowed me to actually notice the stress leaving my body. I could feel it. I remember some days out in the garden, feel it, and I could tap into that and go, okay, I feel a lot lighter. But there were still layers of tightness to kind of be released. But yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good to hear.
It's amazing what we carry, eh? It's amazing what we carry, and we don't feel it until we're able to stop, and then we can feel it.
Yeah. So you talked about like with the things my next question is going to be around what you're looking forward to in the future. So you mentioned you'd love to travel within the next short period of time and to see your online business grow more. What else are you looking forward to?
Oh, I'm really looking forward to being a grandmother.
Are you? No pressure, girls.
Oh my gosh, I'm really looking forward to that. My eldest is only 16, my youngest is 14. So yeah, like not right now. But Mike and I are both really looking forward to that stage. Oh, we can't wait. We can't wait to have grandkids. So hopefully that happens. Yeah, but really honestly, I love having teenage girls, and I love just they're at the stage where they're growing up. Eventually they're going to leave home, or at least, finish the education side, and there's different opportunities for them. So I'm really looking forward to just navigating that with my girls, however that pans out.
Yeah, the relationship you have as your children get older, it's really interesting.
I'm hopeful to be a grandmother one day. So, yeah.
Well, I hope it happens for you.
I'll just have to get some more cats, if not.
So, Kylie, what advice would you give another midlife woman?
Well, I think it is a time to do some evaluations on your life, because we can sit on a treadmill and keep doing what we've been doing, or we can hop off it and decide whether we get back on or whether we do something else. So I think anyone feeling a bit bored or a bit stuck, it's a good idea to just stop and reevaluate what you want, because we can create our own opportunities, and there's so many things that we can do. I know often we feel like if we've trained in a particular area that's what we should do. So if we leave a particular job, and we should go and do another in the same area because that's what we trained to do. But, we all have different skills and life experiences, and we can create something else from that, or have a change in direction. Yeah, but, the time is now. So either continue as you are or you make a change. Yeah.
So very true. Our last question, Kylie, is what do you hope 80-year-old Kylie will say about current day Kylie?
Ooh. Oh, you know what? I think she's going to say, you go, girl. Man, you were brave. You did some great things. I'm so proud of you, honestly. And I think she'll say that because I say that to myself right now. I have learned so many things in the last 6 months. Jo,
Yeah.
Tech, all sorts of things.
Yes.
And every time I layer in something else, I'm like, I take a moment and I think, I'm so darn proud of myself. I just did that. I'm like, same to Mike and the girls, oh my gosh, I just did that. So yeah, I think 80-year-old Kylie will be pretty proud of.
I know 80-year-old Kylie is going to be damn proud of you. Yeah. Well done. All right, so Kylie, thank you so much. This is your first podcast interview.
Yeah.
You've done really, really well. Love chatting to you. You've given all of the listeners some food for thought. And yeah.
It's been lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you so much for your time today. And if you want to catch Kylie, you can have all of the links. You can find Kylie in the show notes. But Instagram is basically where you often go, Kylie. Is that correct? Like that's your place, your most favourite?
Yeah, Instagram is where I like to hang out the most.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Kylie.
Thank you, Jo.
Thanks so much for listening and sharing your time with me today. I'd love you to hit subscribe on Apple Podcast or your favourite podcast app to keep spreading these empowering messages. Please share this podcast with other incredible midlife women in your world. Join me again next week for another redefining midlife conversation. Thanks again for tuning in.